Hello everyone, and welcome back to another True Crime Mysteries video. Thank you all for being here. Today we're discussing 3 honeymoons that ended in murder. Let's get into it. Honeymoons are meant to be the first adventure in a long and happy marriage. It's a time to bond, relax, and celebrate as a couple, and look ahead to their journey together. But for some, honeymoons turned into a nightmare full of terror, leaving newlywed brides murdered and sometimes their husbands as the prime suspects. Number 1. Christy Chen. On July 7, 2022, newlyweds 36-year-old Christy Chen and 38-year-old Bradley Dawson checked into the luxurious all-inclusive Turtle Islands resort. Christy's parents were regulars at the elite private resort, and they paid for their daughter and son-in-law to spend their honeymoon there. They thought the beautiful beaches and breathtaking scenery would help solidify the foundation of the couple's lifelong commitment, but little did they know it would be the place where their daughter would meet a tragic end at the hands of her own husband. Christy worked as a pharmacist in Memphis, Tennessee, while Dawson worked as an IT professional for Youth Villages, a nonprofit which helps children. Christy and Bradley met in November 2021 and got married 3 months later after a whirlwind romance. And before their ill-fated honeymoon, they shared a new townhome in Elsie Avenue in the Cooper Young area in Memphis. On the night of July 9th, Christy and Bradley were enjoying themselves at a party on the beach with the resort staff and other guests. Witnesses later said they appeared to be very drunk and that tensions rose between them when Bradley started dancing and acting inappropriately with another woman at the party. Christy argued with her husband over this. They left the party, and the argument continued on the beach till they reached their private bungalow, where their fight continued. Guests in the bungalow next to theirs said that they heard arguing, banging, a loud scream, and then silence. The next morning, the couple failed to come down for breakfast. While this wasn't exactly unusual, a housekeeper went to check the room. There, she found the body of Christy Chen on the bathroom floor. The post-mortem exam later reported that she had suffered multiple traumatic injuries to her body and shoulders, lacerations to her face, and blunt force trauma to the head. On the night of the murder, a night watchman said they saw Bradley Dawson walking along the beach before he went back to his private bungalow. There, he left his GPS watch and mobile phone, only taking his passport and wallet before fleeing via a kayak across the water, 3 miles away to a secluded beach on the Matakawalavu Island. From there, he wanted to head to the mainland by boat, hoping to leave Fiji, but he never made it that far. A local man found Dawson wandering on the beach on July 10th around 3 p.m. The man said that Dawson appeared to be disturbed and was bruised and bleeding from his palms and feet, injuries he stated had come from falling into a nearby coral reef. The man offered Dawson water and help, and he started rambling about how he used a kayak to paddle to the island between 2 and 3 a.m. after having a fight with his wife. However, the kayak that Dawson claimed that he'd used to travel to the other island had never been found. Before being found by that man, Dawson had been missing for 36 hours and police had been on the hunt for him since Christy's body was found. A team of police officers soon arrived on Matakawalavu Island to take Dawson to custody. He was taken to Fiji's main island, where he was charged with murder. Dawson maintained that Christy's death was an accident. He told the police that he'd gotten into a drunken fight with his wife in their bungalow, which later escalated to a physical confrontation, resulting in a shattered window and cracked toilet. He said to the police, "Christy was next to the toilet, she was hurt, there was blood and a cut on her face." Then he told them that he freaked out and fled using a kayak. He claimed that when he left, Christy had been fine. However, that doesn't match the evidence, and it certainly doesn't explain why he was found miles away with only his wallet and passport. If convicted, Dawson faces life in prison. He had a bail hearing set for September 14th, which was denied. He has pleaded not guilty and is awaiting further court dates, but his lawyer has stated that it could take up to 2 years for the Fiji government to prosecute. He's being held in jail while he awaits trial. In an interview with Good Morning America, an ex-girlfriend of Dawson said that he was often jealous and controlling, and that on one occasion he pushed her. They broke up, and Dawson married another woman in 2019. That marriage ended in divorce, which was finalized this past January, 1 month before he met Christy. Number 2. Annie Dewani. Annie Ndocha was born on March 12, 1982, to a family of Indian origin. Her family used to live in Uganda, but were forced to leave in the early 1970s after the country's president expelled all Asians living there. They were granted residence in Sweden and settled in Mariestad, where Annie was born and raised. Annie had 2 siblings, a sister and a brother, and she doted on both of them. Annie was described as the heart of the family, always making people laugh and always making people feel loved. She was a sweet child who grew into a sweet and caring adult. For as long as anyone could remember, Annie had always dreamed of being a mother and had looked forward to growing up, getting married, and having a large family. After university, Annie moved to Stockholm, where she worked as an engineer for a telecommunications company. Stockholm was also close to her sister, which she loved, and she spent as much time as she could with her young niece and nephew, who she adored. Annie met Shrien Dewani, a British millionaire, in London in 2009 after a mutual contact gave Shrien Annie's details, and he arranged a date. According to Shrien, he was instantly attracted to Annie, for he found her as ambitious as he was. However, the feeling wasn't exactly mutual. Annie told her sister that she wasn't particularly interested in Shrien, but after a few dates, she grew to like him. The couple maintained a long-distance relationship until Annie moved to the UK in March 2010, and they moved in together into a house in Bristol. A little over a year after their first meeting, Shrien flew Annie to Paris on a private jet and proposed to her. They spent the next 3 months in Mumbai, India, planning a lavish wedding. And on October 29, 2010, the couple tied the knot in a spectacular wedding that lasted for 3 days. They planned on having another civil ceremony in the UK for friends who had been unable to attend the Indian wedding. According to Annie's sister, the honeymoon plans had been something Shrien was supposed to put together, and it had surprised her when it was revealed they were going to South Africa. It was planned to be a 6-week honeymoon. Later, the Ndocha family revealed that the smiles and the fairy tale romance were just a facade. Amy Denborg, Annie's sister, said that Shrien was a controlling perfectionist, and Annie didn't really like that. A few days before the wedding, she sent her sister messages saying, "Fighting a lot with Shrien, wish I'd never got engaged," and it's rumored that she had been crying on the plane over to South Africa, sending a series of texts implying that she would be unhappy for the rest of her life. After the couple landed in Cape Town International Airport on November 7, 2010, they took a domestic flight and stayed at the Kruger National Park for 4 nights. They returned to Cape Town International Airport on November 12th, where they met and spoke with private driver Zola Tongo, who drove them to the Cape Grace Hotel. Shrien had opted to use a private taxi service instead of the hotel's shuttle service because it was cheaper. According to Shrien, Tongo gave them a tour around the city before dropping them off at the hotel, and the couple agreed to retain him as their private tour guide. After checking into the hotel, Shrien left Annie and went off to speak with Tongo. He later said that they were simply discussing tour plans and that he sought his help in exchanging money to the local currency. On November 13th, Shrien and Annie had dinner at the hotel. They looked like any other ordinary honeymooning couple. They were smiling, holding hands, and being affectionate with one another. But their happiness was short-lived. They awaited Tongo, their cab driver, outside of their hotel, and once he picked them up, he took them to an area called the Strand where the couple had dinner. After dinner, they got back in the cab. Shrien claimed that Annie had wanted to see a more authentic view of South Africa and was offered to be taken out to an area called Guguletu. Annie was wearing stilettos and a mini dress, an outfit more suitable for a fancy dinner, not the kind of outfit that was appropriate for exploring. Guguletu was known to be a high-crime area. It was also an area that tourists are highly encouraged to avoid. Tongo and Dewani would have known the violent nature of the area, and Annie's sister stated that Annie hadn't been young or naive, she was well-traveled and knew the dangers of the area. She doesn't believe Shrian's story that Annie had planned to go to that rough area at night. According to the data collected by the South African Institute of Race Relations, over 700 people were murdered in Gugulethu between 2005 and 2010. This amounts to one murder every 2.5 days. Shortly after they turned onto the main road in the township, 2 armed men hijacked the vehicle. After driving a short distance, Tongo was ejected from the taxi. They held the couple at gunpoint and robbed Shrian of his wallet, designer watch, and mobile phone. Then they drove for about 20 minutes before pushing him out of the vehicle. Shrian claimed that the hijackers told them that they would be unharmed if they cooperated and would be dropped off separately. Hours later, around midnight, Shrian makes it to the police. He reported the hijacking as well as his wife's kidnapping and told South African police that he had been unable to find her. The next morning at 7:50 a.m., they found the car with Annie's body in the back seat. Her Giorgio Armani wristwatch, a white gold and diamond bracelet, her handbag, and her BlackBerry mobile phone were stolen, but her $25,000 engagement ring had been left behind on the seat next to the body. Annie had died from a single gunshot wound to the neck. The bullet had hit a major artery, and she bled out. On November 17th, Annie's body was returned to the UK on a British Airways flight, accompanied by her newly widowed husband. 6 months later, after her death in a Hindu ceremony, her family scattered her ashes in her favorite area of Vyern Lake, close to her hometown in Sweden. Initially, the investigation progressed quickly. 26-year-old Zoel Mangeni was detained 3 days after Annie's body was discovered and was charged with murder, robbery, and aggravated circumstances, as well as kidnapping. Police were able to identify him thanks to his palm print being discovered on the abandoned vehicle. He later confessed and stated that Annie was shot because she wouldn't give the men her handbag. He had claimed the killing had been an accident and they had only meant to scare her. A few days later, their cab driver, 31-year-old Zola Tonga, and 26-year-old Misimboro Kwabe were charged with murder, robbery with aggravated circumstances, and kidnapping. A tip from an informant directed the police to Kwabe. Zola initially told authorities that he was ambushed and pulled from the taxi, but he denied any involvement. But when the authorities presented him with evidence connecting him to the kidnapping scheme, he admitted guilt and confessed his involvement to the crime. His confession blew open a whole new scenario that had never even been explored yet. He alleged that he'd been approached by Shrian Dalwani and asked for assistance arranging the murder of his new bride. A fourth man, Monde Mbalbo, a hotel worker, was arrested for his involvement in helping to organize the robbery. The 3 men later supported Tonga's claims and told the police that Shrian Dalwani was the mastermind behind his wife's murder. On November 23rd, Dalwani spoke to The Sun and rejected all speculation that he was somehow involved in the carjacking, saying, "People who suggest this could not have seen us together." This is apparently CCTV footage taken from the hotel the morning after Annie's body was discovered. It is Shrian Dalwani, and the man he is speaking to is Zola Tongo. They are talking in the hotel lobby, a meeting he denied. Dalwani also wasn't forthcoming with South African law enforcement following Annie's murder. He had left South Africa soon after Annie's murder, and South African law enforcement claimed he didn't cooperate with their investigation, causing further suspicion. However, it was later revealed that Kwabe and Tongo were offered reduced sentences in exchange for guilty pleas and testimonies against Shrian Dalwani. At the same time, Mondo Malamambo was granted full immunity from prosecution for the promise of truthful testimony against Dalwani. On December 7th, Tongo pleaded guilty to armed robbery and the kidnapping and murder of Annie Dalwani, crimes he alleged were instigated by Shrian Dalwani. He was sentenced to 18 years in prison. On February 18, 2012, Kwabe's counsel said that court was unable to provide a fair trial for his client and claimed that he was coerced into confession, but the court denied the claims and he was sentenced to 25 years in prison. As for Mangeni, he pleaded not guilty despite having admitted to his role in the crime. His lawyer claimed that he was coerced, he was suffocated with a plastic bag before signing a statement admitting to his involvement in the killing. further saying that the police resorted to irregular methods because of the scrutiny they were under to solve the high-profile case. However, the courts accepted all of their initial statements, alleging that the crime was a contract killing. It was determined through the courts that Mangeni was the one that had been the one to shoot Annie and was sentenced to life in prison. He died in custody from a brain tumor on October 18, 2014. After a long legal battle, Shrien Dewani was extradited from the UK to South Africa on April 7, 2014. Upon arrival, he was arrested, charged, and ordered to stand trial for allegedly arranging the murder of his wife. He was charged with 5 offenses: conspiracy to commit kidnapping, robbery with aggravated circumstances, murder, kidnapping, and obstructing the administration of justice. He pleaded not guilty to all 5 charges. But why would Shrien want Annie dead in the first place? According to the prosecution's case, Shrien led a secret life, one that involved a playboy bachelor lifestyle that he wasn't willing to give up, and he wanted a way out of his marriage. They alleged that he was forced by his family to get married, and that he never wanted to. They said that he planned a contract killing and recruited Zola to orchestrate a hijacking in which Annie would be killed, and they would release him unscathed. CCTV footage showing Shrien giving money to Zola was displayed to the court. Shrien was captured on camera, turning to face the hotel security camera before disappearing from view. Another video showed him walking towards a small room with Zola while toting a bag containing money. Additional footage showed him in a 5-star Cape Grace hotel, where Zola can be seen sitting on a leather couch, Shrien asking a cleaning man to allow them privacy.
Landing in Cape Town, looking at the beautiful town, the city, is fantastic, but our feet doesn't. We can't walk freely, like sort of every inch, every step we take. It's like Annie is there, and her memory comes back. We don't want him to come out and do more crimes. He's not eligible for that. He is not prepared for that yet. I think if they let him out, they're making a big mistake.
The defense argued that the case should be dismissed because of the lack of credible evidence. On November 24, 2014, Dewani was acquitted and exonerated for all involvement with the crimes. The judge ruled that there was not enough credible evidence to link Shrien to the crime and explained her ruling by saying, Mr. Tongo, who was the only witness who could link the accused to the conspiracy, gave evidence to the court, which is impossible and contains so many mistakes, lies, and inconsistencies that one simply cannot know where the lies end and the truth begin.
In the circumstances, I make the following order. The application in terms of Section 174 of the Criminal Procedure Act is granted. The accused is found not guilty on this charge, and Mr. Mlombo is not granted indemnity from prosecution.
In 2022, Zola Tongo was granted parole after 12 years in prison, a move that wasn't well received by Annie's family, who attended the parole hearing. We may never truly know what happened that day, if Shrien was involved or if he'd simply been a scapegoat to secure reduced sentences. There are still many questions left unanswered, even after all these years, and despite 3 men being convicted of Annie's murder, it still doesn't feel like justice was served.
Today we feel really, really sad because we never heard the full story of Shrien. We heard that Shrien has led a double life and that Annie knew nothing about it. And we just wish that Shrien had been honest with us and especially with Annie. The knowledge of not ever knowing what happened to my dearest little sister on the 13th of November 2010. That's gonna haunt me, my family, my brother, my parents, for the rest of our lives. We've had 4 years of sleepless nights, and will we ever be able to sleep? We've had tremendous support from the South African public, and many others around the world. And we're grateful to all of them and thank them from the bottom of our heart. We as a family will make no further comments and respectfully ask the media to give us some time and space for reflection. Thank you.
Number 3. Michaela McCarvey. Known as the Pearl of the Indian Ocean, Mauritius is a much-desired destination for millions of travelers, especially honeymooners. But on January 10, 2011, the beautiful tropical island was the scene of a heinous crime that took the life of new bride Michaela McCarvey. Michaela Hart was a 27-year-old Irish language teacher from County Tyrone, Northern Ireland. She met John McCarvey in university in 2005, and the two fell head over heels in love. More than 300 friends and family came together on December 30th, 2010 to celebrate the wedding of John and Michaela, and on New Year's Eve, the wedding celebration melded into a birthday party as Michaela celebrated her birthday as well. A stunning bride, and the couple seemed so happy. They spent the first 7 days of their honeymoon in Dubai, and were due to spend the rest of it in Mauritius. On January 8th, they checked into the Legends Hotel, a 5-star resort that had excellent reviews and was popular for Irish visitors. It was in the fishing village of Grand Guab, northeast of the country. On January 10th, 10 days into their honeymoon, John and Michaela had breakfast in the hotel. Then John went to the golf course while Michaela sunbathed. When they met again, they enjoyed a poolside lunch. Michaela left the table around 2:44 p.m. to walk the short distance to their deluxe room, 1025, to bring down some biscuits to enjoy with a cup of tea. John took pictures and watched some videos as he waited for his wife to return. But 15 minutes later, he noticed Michaela had been gone for a while, longer than it should have been to grab something, so he looked for her. On his way to the room, he realized he had forgotten his key, so he went to the reception. A bellboy opened the door for John, and they found Michaela's body in the bathtub, with the water still running. John lifted her from the bath and tried to revive her, but it was already too late. In an autopsy report, it was revealed that Michaela had several abrasions and bruising to the front of her neck and her collarbone, and the coroner ruled her cause of death to be asphyxiation. It was hypothesized that when Michaela had returned back to their room, she had interrupted a burglary in progress and had been murdered as a result. In Mauritius, Michaela's murder received significant media attention. When a murder takes place in a nation that depends on tourism, of course there will be a pressing need to get the case closed as soon as possible. And given that arrests were made only 1 day after Michaela's death, it appeared that this case would be resolved quickly. On January 11th, 3 men who worked at the hotel were arrested for the murder. All 3 men worked as cleaners for the hotel. They appeared in court in Mauritius on January 12th. 2 of the men were charged with murder, and 1 of the men was charged with conspiracy to murder. The 3 men all pleaded not guilty, and the case went to trial. Thikoi had been granted immunity if he spoke against the other 2 cleaners, and he alleged that he heard a woman scream. He ran over to room number 1025, and saw the other 2 men flee the room. He said that both men were wet and appeared to look worried. He also alleged that one of them threatened him later. Thikoi committed suicide years after the trial, though it has been noted as being a suspicious death. 2 hotel security guards were also arrested the days following the murder. They were charged with aiding and abetting a crime. Both suspects were shortly released, and had all charges against them dropped since they came up with an explanation for why their fingerprints had been in the room. They had helped John when he had called for help upon finding Michaela's body. On January 17, 2011, thousands of mourners attended a special mass that was held simultaneously in Mauritius and Ireland in memory of Michaela. The trial of the 2 hotel workers accused of murdering Michaela began in Mauritius on May 22, 2012. John told the court that the police had handcuffed him and manhandled him on the day of the murder. They considered him an initial suspect, and he was held in custody for 5 hours and examined for trace evidence. He even said that one of the officers told him, "Why are you crying? You're still young. You can go find another wife." The DNA samples were sent to be examined by forensic experts from England. He revealed that there weren't any DNA traces belonging to the two accused. During the trial, the Major Crimes Investigation Team of the Mauritius Police Force faced several criticisms for the handling of the case, as they didn't question all the hotel guests and staff that day or even preserve the crime scene. They were even accused of coercing the initial confessions made by the two suspects. On July 12th, the judge told the jury of 6 men and 3 women not to worry about ramifications their verdict may have on the reputation of Mauritius, as they weren't politicians and it wasn't their job to save the image of the country. The jurors deliberated for 2 hours before reaching a unanimous verdict, declaring both men not guilty. In a statement released after the verdict, the McCarvey and Hart families said that the 7-week trial had been harrowing and no words could describe the sense of devastation and desolation they felt. On July 15, 2012, a Mauritian newspaper called Sunday Times published 12 black and white appalling photographs of the crime scene, including a photograph of Michaela's body on the front page. The Hart and McCarvey family described the act as insensitive and demeaning. The Irish government issued a formal complaint with the government of Mauritius. And on the morning of July 16th, police raided the Sunday Times office and arrested the newspaper's editor, charging him with causing outrage to the public and religious morality. Following the trial, the family of John and Michaela sued the Legends Hotel for £1.6 million. They received the settlement in August 2015 and used it to fund the Michaela Foundation, which ran for 10 years and encouraged young people to lead a life without limits and had goals of continuing the work Michaela did to continue teaching and preserving the Irish language. John remarried in 2016 with the blessing of the Hart family. A new investigation was launched in 2014 after the not guilty verdict, but nothing substantial was uncovered. In 2017, an elite task force was set up to investigate further, but no new evidence was found that warranted reopening the case for a retrial. And in 2022, one of the initial suspects was arrested a second time. He'd been one of the security workers at the hotel, and it was believed that he had been the one to duplicate the room key for Michaela's room. This is one of those cases that seem like unless there's a confession, it will always remain a mystery. Well, that is it for this video. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you like this content, what I do over here, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you don't miss my next upload. As always, if you give this video a like, if you enjoyed the content, that would be much appreciated, as it is the easiest way to help the channel grow. We also have channel membership as well as Patreon if you want to get more behind the scenes content, as well as any sort of exclusive content or just to support the channel. In the description box of this video, you also find links to all my socials as well as other goodies. But that is it for me. Thank you so much for being here. I will see you on the next one. Bye for now.